I'm going to give you a behind the scenes look at the real estate closing process, how we go from signed contract all the way to keys in your hands. And along the way, I'm going to share three of my favorite tips that I give to my buyer clients. My name is Soccio-Marandola. I'm a real estate lawyer here in Toronto, and I help people like you close deals every single day. So when I look at the closing process, there's five main steps that every deal has to pass through in order to close. Step one is always reviewing the agreement of purchase and sale. This is a line-by-line reading the contract and any amendments, waivers, or notices that come along with it. Now, this is the very first thing I do because the APS is the most important document in the real estate transaction. Every right, every obligation, deadline, every protection you have comes from this one contract. When I'm looking through it, I'm looking specifically at things like the legal description, critical dates, conditions, what they are, when they're due, representations or warranties, and anything you or the seller negotiated that could affect how we close. Now, having a full understanding of the agreement from the start is what allows me to identify risks and problem areas early and use our experience to get the deal closed. Now, this leads into my first buyer tip that I give to my clients, and that is when possible, avoid selling and buying on the same day. I know it feels efficient, but it actually adds risk to your closing. And that's because your purchase likely depends on the money from your sale. And the buyer from your sale might be waiting on their sale to close. And that buyer might be waiting on someone else. So it creates this domino effect. And if one deal is delayed, every deal behind it gets pushed, including yours. And not having funds in time to close is a very expensive problem to have. So whenever you can, leave at least one day between closings just to be safe. Now, moving on to step two, once we understand the agreement, we complete a formal title search. Now, this is where I search through the ownership documents of the property to understand its history and what's currently registered on title. Now, without this step, you can end up with invalid title, you can end up with liens, unpaid taxes, or restrictions on the use of the property. So when I'm doing this search, I'm verifying that the sellers actually own the property, I'm confirming the legal description, checking for encumbrances like mortgages, liens, and easements, I'm reviewing the history of the transfers, and we're checking adjacent properties. Now, in some situations, we're also completing off-title searches with the municipality for things like permits, taxes, and work orders. From there, we're putting a title insurance policy in place to supplement our search with protection for you and to satisfy the lender. Once our review and our searches are done, we prepare the closing documents, and that's everything we'll need to actually transfer the property into your name. Now, this paperwork has to be precise because mistakes here can cause delays, and timing is very important in a real estate transaction. So behind the scenes, I'm drafting the transfer and the mortgage documents. These are what get registered on title. We're confirming the statement of adjustments from the seller. I'm drafting directions, declarations, and acknowledgements. I'm organizing the lender documents. And for those first-time home buyers, we're completing the necessary rebate forms. Now, once all this is done, the paperwork is double-checked, and we're ready for you to sign. After the document stage, we know exactly how much money we need to close, taking into account closing adjustments, land transfer tax, title insurance, and legal fees. So my second client tip is to make sure your assets are liquid and in a bank account without holds as early as possible. Now, some investment accounts require a few business days to convert to cash, and when moving in between accounts, banks can place holds on funds. In our office, we provide these figures at least 10 days before, so you're prepared for this. And even when we don't have the exact numbers yet from the lender or seller, we provide a clear estimate to make sure that you'll be in a position to close. Now, the next step is the signing meeting, and we usually schedule this 1 to 3 days before closing. Now, we can do these meetings in person here in our office, or we offer virtual signing appointments, so you can complete this step from the comfort of your home. Now, this meeting is a great opportunity to make sure there are no unanswered questions going into closing day. My role is to walk you through the documents in plain English, explain how all the closing funds are calculated, review any lender conditions, and make sure you're fully prepared for what happens on closing. By the time we finish, you should feel clear, confident, and ready for your new home. Our last step is closing day. This is where everything comes together. Now, behind the scenes, your lender sends us the mortgage funds in the morning, we send money to the seller's lawyer, pay the taxes, and once the seller confirms receipt, we register the deed in your name. Now, up until a few years ago, you'd come into your lawyer's office to pick up your new keys once we closed. Nowadays, the moment we close, the seller sends us a lockbox code, and we provide that to you, and you're free to take possession of your new home without the detour of a key pickup. Now, this leads us to the last buyer tip, and that is don't book contractors or plan an early move-in on closing day. And I get the urge to hit the ground running, but in Ontario, there are no set closing times. You get the keys only once the lawyers exchange funds and documents. Now, because of banking delays, other firms' workloads, and last minute issues, the exact timing is unpredictable. If your deal doesn't close until late afternoon, everyone you booked ends up waiting, and that usually means extra costs for you. Now, in practice, most purchases close between 2 p.m. and 5 p.m., so plan for later in the day access, not first thing in the morning. All right, so that's the closing process, start to finish. I know it can feel overwhelming, especially the first time you go through it, but when you understand what's happening behind the scenes, you're in a position to make the right decisions. Now, if you're buying a new home in Ontario and you want a lawyer who explains things clearly, keeps you updated, and makes the process feel manageable instead of stressful, you can always reach out. I'm happy to help. And if you want more practical videos like this, whether it's about the closing process, the agreement of purchase and sale, or anything else that comes up in a real estate deal, make sure you subscribe. I'm going to be posting new videos every single week to help buyers, sellers, and realtors stay ahead of the curve.